Hello once again, and welcome to the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. We're joined by Chief Agricultural Editor Kevin Hirsch and 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young. I'm GX94 Agriculture Director Doug Falconer, and a few items came up this week, even though it's getting pretty close to Christmas. First of all, just came in on Thursday, Kevin, the funding announcement for the Western Grains Research Foundation because the two railways exceeded their revenue caps again.
It seems to be a perennial thing. They don't seem to want to leave any money on the table under the maximum revenue entitlement. It makes you wonder if there wasn't a maximum revenue entitlement, it makes it pretty clear which way grain freight rates would go. But both were over by give or take $3.5 million. Have to add a 5% penalty to that. So Western Grains Research Foundation will be receiving about $7.2 million to put towards research funding. And that's many farm organizations sit around that table deciding on funding initiatives from Western Grains Research Foundation. There is some talk that maybe that money shouldn't go to Western Grains Research Foundation, but very difficult to distribute it back to the people that actually paid freight rates. So nobody's ever come up with a different or better way of doing it. So certainly Western Grains Research Foundation continues to have quite a kitty of money to draw interest from to fund research projects.
This 5% interest that they have to pay on it, obviously these railways must be making more than 5% interest on the money sitting in their bank account for the last year for them to keep doing it over and over again.
Yeah, and the thing is, I think it was about $1 billion each that they took from for handling grain transportation. And this is not a lot of people look at this and say, oh, it's a rate cap. Well, it's not a rate cap, it's a revenue cap. So it's adjusted yearly for both grain volume and inflation factors. So it keeps going up. So each railway earned about $1 billion from grain transportation. So I suppose they consider it just a small rounding error to be $3.5 million over their revenue cap, and certainly didn't leave any stone unturned to be under their revenue cap and not earning that amount of money.
And one of the other things that happened this week, we heard that Bourgault Industries has been sold to an Ontario-based company. What's your reaction to that, Ryan? I know you used to live in St. Brew at one time.
Yeah, for a little bit. My parents also live up in St. Brew. They've been there for a little over 10 years now. And kind of caught me a little bit off guard. I wasn't expecting a company as big as Bourgault to be sold to another company, just given how healthy, so to speak, they are as a company financially. Obviously, Bourgault is a major employer in St. Brew. It's a small town of a few hundred people in the northeastern part of Saskatchewan, about a half-hour drive south of Melfort. And a lot of the town residents are employed by Bourgault. So one of the first thoughts as well when it comes to deals like this is, whether, a lot of the people will get to maintain their jobs or be shifted elsewhere. But in reading into it, doesn't seem like there's any plans whatsoever to, kind of restructure everything. It's just announced, so it's pretty fresh, and kind of interested to see where it kind of goes. And it's kind of the latest in what's been a year full of mergers and acquisitions, and also, Kevin, a trend of what's been happening over the last 10 to 20 years.
Certainly it continues to happen, and I would think that nothing is going to change for Bourgault employees in the near term. I've had the pleasure of touring that plant at St. Brew a few times. Very modern, up-to-date plant. They're not going to be moving that anytime soon. But it's interesting. The company that bought Bourgault is Linamar, and you might say, oh, who's Linamar? But probably people recognize MacDon Industries. MacDon is a large manufacturing plant in Winnipeg that makes combine headers. So Linamar took over MacDon a few years ago, and they also own the Salford brand. So they now own Bourgault Industries, which is the number one seating equipment company in Western Canada with a huge international presence. But yeah, we've seen lots of this also this week. Bourgault was a surprise. Nobody really knew they were for sale. At least I certainly didn't. So this came out of the blue. But Bueller Industries of Winnipeg, the maker of versatile tractors, has been long looking for somebody to partner with it and take over the shares owned by Russian interests. And that was announced this week that they had found a sale for that. And it's a Turkish tractor company that's going to take over for Bueller Industries, or become the major shareholder of Bueller Industries. Personally, I actually heaved a bit of a sigh of relief. I run a versatile 435 tractor. I was not very happy with the Russian connection there, or the fear that Bueller Industries may not be an ongoing entity. So happy to see that their future looks more stable.
Do you find it unusual that we're seeing these announcements so late in the calendar year?
I think it's just coincidental timing. Not sure that it really has anything in particular to do with the end of the year. I think they just, get to the stage where they've got enough of the legal stuff done that they can actually announce. I think in the upcoming year, one thing to watch will be the decision by the Competition Bureau on the Bunge Viterra takeover. Bunge has an equity position in G3 elevators. I count about 18 G3 elevators spread across Western Canada. So when the takeover goes through, there will be no doubt instances where there's a G3 elevator and a Viterra elevator in close proximity. Will the Competition Bureau rule that one or the other of those has to be sold? Or will they say, oh, it's only a small interest that Bunge has in G3? But that could shake loose a number of assets that could be up for sale in the upcoming year. But again, that's speculation, but something to watch for 2024.
And finally, of course, APAS had their AGM a couple of weeks ago, and in a year-end interview, Ian Boxall, the president of APAS, was talking about really looking ahead to 2024. It's the livestock industry that they really seem concerned about. I think that's well warranted, don't you think?
I didn't actually hear the interview yet with Ian Boxall, but certainly the cow calf business saw a lot higher prices and some better earning potential in 2023. What prices will be going forward is hard to know, but almost all analysts believe that the beef breeding herd is not being built back up again. More and more land has been converted from pasture and tame hay into crop production. It takes much more labor to run a beef cattle operation. Some of the operations are using the high prices to exit the industry rather than expand. So I do agree that the beef industry is a tough go, especially if we think that we want to be building our beef breeding herd.
Yeah, considering the conditions that we've had for this past year, a lot of places in Western Canada, with drought, and a lot of farmers, like you say, Kevin, using the high prices as an opportunity to get out of the business as a whole. And I remember speaking with a cattle producer in the fall during one of the 620 CKRM ranch roundups, and I asked him about the high prices that were happening at the time. And he said, as great as they are, with that also comes higher costs and higher interest rates. And we need to keep those high prices, just to cover the cost alone. So while some producers are, happy about those prices, the highest they've been since 2015, it also brings some pause to others like, yeah, that's great. But so a lot of moving parts here, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in 2024.
All right. Well, I think that'll do it for this week's edition of the SaskAgToday.com Roundtable. On behalf of Chief Agricultural Editor Kevin Hirsch and 620 CKRM Regina Agri-News Director Ryan Young, I'm GX94 Agriculture Director Doug Falconer, saying so long until next week.